When detectives examined the photographs on David Morales' laptop, one detail stood out. A man in the background, blurry, half hidden, but always there, watching. He appeared in 3 separate images, different locations, different women, always in the shadows. At first, detectives thought it might be coincidence, a stranger caught in the background, but then they noticed something chilling. In each photograph, Morales' attention was focused on the woman, but the shadowy man's eyes were always focused on Morales. They ran the photos through facial recognition. At first, nothing. But when they cross-checked old arrest records, a name surfaced: Miguel Herrera, 37 years old, a man with a record of trespassing, assault, and suspected stalking. A man who once lived with Morales. Investigators pulled property records. In 2016, Morales and Herrera had co-signed a lease for a house on the east side of San Antonio. The same year, a young woman disappeared just blocks from that address. Her name was Angela Ramirez, 22 years old. Last seen walking home from her job at a laundromat, she vanished without a trace. No suspects, no leads, until now. When detectives cross-referenced Morales' notebook, they found Angela's initials scrawled in the corner of one page, not written clearly, not like the other names, almost as if someone else had written them. The handwriting was different, sloppier, more rushed, and that opened a terrifying possibility. Were the notebook entries not just Morales's? Was Herrera adding names too? The theory grew stronger when investigators searched Herrera's old apartment. In the closet, hidden under a false floorboard, they found women's belongings: a bracelet, a set of keys, a driver's license belonging to Angela Ramirez. Detective Ruiz later said, "That was the moment we knew. Morales wasn't working alone." The 2 men were questioned separately. Morales remained silent, smirking through hours of interrogation. Herrera was different. At first, he denied everything, but when confronted with Angela's belongings, his demeanor cracked. He admitted knowing Morales, admitted being with him on some nights, but he insisted he never killed anyone. He said Morales was the one who took it too far. He said, "I just watched. I didn't touch her. He made me promise I wouldn't say a word." But Herrera's DNA told another story. On the fragments of clothing found near the drainage tunnel, the same place detectives believed Vanessa Cruz was dumped, traces of Herrera's DNA were recovered, and suddenly the picture became clearer. 2 men working together, luring women, preying on them, disposing of their bodies like trash. Still, the question remained: how many? When police dug deeper into Herrera's history, they uncovered disturbing overlaps. In 2014, Herrera was questioned after a college student in Dallas disappeared. No charges filed. In 2015, a woman in Oklahoma reported being followed by a man matching his description. Nothing came of it. And in 2017, Herrera's phone records placed him within miles of Vanessa Cruz's last known location on the night she vanished. The Alvarez family sat in disbelief as these revelations unfolded. Elena said quietly, "It wasn't just one monster. It was 2. And my daughter walked right into their trap." The community of San Antonio was shaken again. People wondered how many of the cold cases on file might connect to Morales and Herrera. Local news outlets began digging. Some discovered that at least 6 disappearances in Texas from 2014 to 2019 shared disturbing similarities. Young women, alone, offered quick cash jobs, gone without a trace. Meanwhile, prosecutors prepared to bring Herrera to trial. But just before proceedings began, a bombshell dropped. A jail informant came forward claiming Morales had spoken openly about his crimes while behind bars. According to the informant, Morales bragged that the creek wasn't the only place. He said there were other dump sites. He said, "They'll never find them all." Detectives pressed the informant for details. He claimed Morales mentioned a cabin in the woods, north of San Antonio, a place he and Herrera used when things got messy. A search warrant was issued. Officers combed through property records and found that Herrera's cousin once owned a small hunting cabin near the Guadalupe River. When police raided it, they found evidence that turned the case upside down. Inside were women's belongings, burned fragments of clothing in the fire pit, and under the floorboards, a buried metal box. Inside the box were VHS tapes, labeled only with dates. When investigators viewed them, the horror was undeniable. Footage of women, some bound, some crying, always filmed from hidden angles. And in several of the tapes, Morales and Herrera appeared together, laughing, drinking, treating it like a game. Detective Ruiz said in a later interview, "It was the most disturbing evidence I've seen in 20 years on the job." The tapes were entered into evidence. Prosecutors now had more than circumstantial links. They had proof of collaboration, proof of predation, proof that Rachel Alvarez's death was part of a long, calculated series of crimes. But even as trials loomed, one more mystery surfaced. During analysis of the VHS tapes, investigators noticed something strange. In one of the recordings, filmed in 2015, there was a third figure, a man's voice behind the camera, directing, telling Morales and Herrera what to do. That voice was never identified, and with it came the possibility that there was someone else, someone higher in the chain, someone who had never been caught. For weeks, investigators replayed the tapes. Forensic audio experts enhanced the sound. They isolated the voice, deep, slight accent, confident, almost as if he believed he would never be caught. They compared the voice against prison calls Morales had made years earlier, against Herrera's recorded interviews. No match. But in one tape, filmed in 2015, the man's reflection briefly appeared in a mirror on the wall. Blurred, distorted, but enough to make out. Balding, medium build, wearing a plaid shirt. Detectives froze the frame. They ran it through facial recognition databases. At first, nothing, but then a hit. Carlos Vega, age 43, a handyman, arrest record for burglary and assault. And one chilling fact, he once worked as a maintenance contractor at the very rental property Morales had lured Rachel Alvarez to in 2019. The pieces began to fit. Vega had access to empty properties. He knew which homes were vacant. He could provide cover, and he had crossed paths with Morales years earlier. Phone records later showed dozens of calls between Morales and Vega between 2014 and 2017. Detective Ruiz said, "That's when we realized Morales wasn't the leader. Herrera wasn't the leader. Vega was. He was the one pulling the strings." But proving it would be harder. Vega had no direct ties to Rachel Alvarez's death, no DNA, no messages, just his voice on tapes and his shadow in the background. They needed more. So detectives dug into Vega's past. What they found was disturbing. In 2013, Vega had been questioned in connection with the disappearance of a 19-year-old woman named Sofia Martinez. She had vanished while jogging near her apartment complex. Witnesses reported seeing a maintenance worker nearby. But Vega had an alibi. He was never charged. Sofia's case went cold. Now, detectives re-examined it. They pulled old files, found inconsistencies. Vega's time card for that night had been altered, sloppily. A handwriting expert later testified it was likely Vega himself who falsified it. When investigators searched a storage shed Vega rented under a false name, they found what they had been looking for: a box. Inside were more women's belongings: jewelry, diaries, photographs. One photo showed Sofia Martinez smiling with friends. Another item matched what she had been wearing the day she vanished. Finally, prosecutors had their case. Vega was arrested in September 2021, charged with conspiracy, kidnapping, and murder in multiple cases. The community erupted with shock. For years, he had been hiding in plain sight, working jobs, fixing apartments, all while helping orchestrate a nightmare. In interrogations, Vega denied everything. He claimed Morales and Herrera were framing him. He said, "I don't know those women." But prosecutors had the tapes, the voice analysis, the belongings in his shed, and the reflection in the mirror. The trial began in early 2023. For the first time, the Alvarez family sat in the same courtroom as all three men: Morales, Herrera, and Vega. Three predators, three monsters, connected by one victim who finally brought their crimes into the light. Prosecutors painted Vega as the orchestrator, Morales as the lure, Herrera as the accomplice. Together, they formed a triangle of terror. They preyed on vulnerable women, they built trust with offers of cash jobs, and they destroyed lives. Family members of other victims testified: Vanessa Cruz's mother, Angela Ramirez's sister, even a woman who survived a close call in 2016. She pointed at Vega in the courtroom and said, "That's him. That's the man who followed me. I never forgot his face." The jury deliberated for only 8 hours. On April 18, 2023, Carlos Vega was found guilty on all counts. He was sentenced to life in prison without parole. As the verdict was read, Elena Alvarez wept, not because justice brought Rachel back, but because at last, the men who hunted her daughter, who had hunted so many, were finally locked away. But the story didn't end in that courtroom. Investigators believe there are still victims unaccounted for, cases still unsolved, belongings found with no matches, faces and photographs never identified. Detective Ruiz admitted, "We may never know the true number, but at least we stopped them." The Alvarez family turned their pain into purpose. They expanded the Rachel Alvarez Foundation. They worked with lawmakers to strengthen safety measures for gig economy jobs. They partnered with advocacy groups to educate young women about the risks of accepting off-the-books offers. Marco Alvarez said, "Rachel's story can't just be about how she died. It has to be about how she helps others live." Each year, on the anniversary of her death, the community gathers at Riverbend Creek. They light candles. They release lanterns into the sky. They speak the names of Rachel, Vanessa, Angela, Sophia, and others who never made it home. Rachel Alvarez was only 24. She wanted to be a graphic designer. She wanted to travel. She wanted to live. Instead, she became the key to unraveling a network of predators who might have gone undetected forever. Her story is a reminder. Behind every headline is a human being. Behind every case file is a family. Behind every unsolved disappearance is a voice waiting to be heard. And while Morales, Herrera, and Vega now sit behind bars, one haunting truth lingers. There are still unidentified faces on those tapes, women who may never be named, families who may never know. The nightmare is over for some, but not for all. And the question remains, how many others walked into the same trap, never to be seen again? Rachel Alvarez took a $200 job. It should have been safe. It should have been simple. Instead, it exposed a network of predators, led to multiple convictions, and saved countless future victims. Her name will not be forgotten. Her legacy is change. If Rachel's story moved you, leave your thoughts in the comments. Like this video so her story reaches more people, and subscribe to Evidence Uncovered, because these are the stories that must be told. These are the names that must be remembered. And Rachel's voice, though stolen, will echo forever.